What's going on, guys? Welcome back to another episode. So in today's episode, we're actually going to go through all the venomous snakes here in the snake room and give you an update of how the collection's growing. So let's go ahead and take a look. So we're going to start with the elapids here because we only have 3 of them. So that way we'll get through that family group first, and then we'll look at all the vipers and the heloderma I have. But first up is this little female Sufan monocled cobra. Now these are a naturally occurring color phase, and they are gorgeous. They're also in the monocle cobras. They have the leucistics, which these could get confused with just because they're more of a wider cobra. But these guys, as they grow and age, they kind of have a whole slate gray color over their entire body, whereas the leucistics are pure white. They may have a little bit of gray on the head, but not much. So let's go ahead and get this girl away, and then we'll take out the next elapid in the snake room that we have. So next up, we got actually a new snake that no one has seen unless you follow me on Instagram. This is my female inland taipan, also known as the fierce snake. Now this is actually the most venomous snake on the planet. These guys are no joke. Their toxicity is on a whole nother level. These guys come from the outback of Australia, so bites with these aren't very common just because of where they're located. Now this is actually a snake I've wanted to work with for probably 15, 16 years now, ever since I watched Steve Rowan on the Crocodile Hunter, free handle some of these out in the outback, some big ones, and in some of his Crocodile Hunter TV shows. This was like the dream snake of mine since I was a kid, just watching him handle that. One thing I've noticed with these guys though is as they're young, they're really flighty. As you can see, they're super twitchy. When they get a little older, they get more confident with themselves, and they actually mellow down a lot compared to the other taipan species. Like the Papua New Guineas or the coastals. And these guys get about 5 to 6 feet long, would be like a big one, and decently girthy of a body. And now these guys will definitely lure you into a false sense of security, because just looking at this, to me in North America, this doesn't look like a venomous snake, and definitely not the most venomous snake on the planet. It almost looks like a king snake or corn snake. There's no real prominent venom glands or anything. So if you didn't know what you're doing, you definitely might not even recognize the snake as being dangerous. Now she's in her winter colors. With taipans, they go through 2 color phases. They have their summer coloration and their winter coloration. So their winters are way more dark. So as you can see, she's got the dark brown bands all over her, like these little stripes that you can kind of pick up on when you really look at her. But during the summer, she is a bright yellow color, and her head will even turn yellow from the brown that it is right now. Now, I definitely don't want to stress her out too much, just because these taipans are really easy to stress out, and she's eating now. So this is one snake that you'll see on the channel that I won't handle all that much until she's probably in the 3 to 4 foot mark, just because I don't want to stress her out. And they are, like I said, flighty as young ones. As they become older and mature, from what I've seen and what people have told me with adult inland taipans, is they're actually not that bad to handle. So I'm gonna go ahead and put her away, and then we'll take out King COVID real quick, and we'll see how much bigger that little king cobra is getting. All right, so next up we got King COVID. This is our Indonesian-Malaysian king cobra cross. Now he's getting quite big. He's probably, right now, maybe 1.5 years old, maybe 1 year and 3 months. He's not very old yet. He's still very much a baby. And by baby, I mean he's a big baby. If you look at him, he's probably pushing 7 foot now. And he's got these amazing colors. I mean, he's like a neonish green yellow. He's very beautiful. I'm hoping the camera picks that up. And as you see, he's got his little hood there. He's not much of a hooder. He kind of just chills. He's basically a big corn snake. So the one thing with king cobras is they're such a visual snake that I could be just holding his tail, and right now he's focused on the camera and Julia holding it, that he's staring at her and not even paying attention that I'm the one holding him. He's like, I'm on the ground, but I see something in front of me. That's what I'm looking at. That's where my focus is. So when you work with king cobras, especially when they get bigger, and for king COVID, when he gets bigger, it's really good to have another person there with you. So that way, one person can be working him and the other person is distracting him, and you have a really safe encounter, which is preferable with king cobras. So let's get him put away. And then next up, I think what we're gonna do is check out the beeta lizard, because we only have one of those, and then we'll get into the Viperidae family. All right, so next up, before we get back into snakes, is actually a beeta lizard. Now this is actually Heloderma horridum horridum. There's a few different types of beeta lizards, and as you can see, if I make a little bit of a squinty face, is because his claws are so sharp. That's why I'm gonna let him walk around a little bit, because just holding him barely like that, I mean, he's already scratched me up. Let's see if I can grab him back. Now, this is actually one of the only 2 species of true venomous lizards in the world where they actually have venom glands and a way to inject it. And now with lizards, it's a little different than with snakes because they don't actually have like hypodermic needles like snakes do to inject venom. It's actually all in their bottom jaw. That is a whole venom gland. So what they do is they bite into you, they hold on, and they keep chewing. And that's how they inject venom. It kind of salivates up from their venom glands. So one of the funny things too about beta lizards is they sleep upside down. So on their backs with their feet and their hands in the air. First time I saw it, I thought the lizard died. I got the lizard, no one told me they slept like that. And I think it was like a week after having him, I walk in the room and he's upside down. And I was like, oh no, my lizard died. And then when I went to poke him, I was like, wait, he's breathing. And I went to pick him up and he flipped around. And then I talked to a guy that has like 10 of these and he was like, yeah, man, they just sleep on their back. It's a really funny habit that these guys have. He's just reaching out, he's like, I wanna walk, as he's scratching me with his feet. So let's get back to some snakes because that way I won't get scratched anymore. Now this is actually one of my African variable bush vipers, also known as a squam. Now this is my bright orange female. Let me see if I can get her face in the shot there. Now these guys are very, very striky. They just always are inclined to bite. Even taking her out, she struck like 4 times, which makes them to where you don't want to touch them necessarily. You don't want to tail this type of snake, but also makes them very easy to feed. Like I've got a bunch of babies that we'll get into right after this, so I can show you different colors. But because they're so striky, it makes them great to feed. They pretty much, once you get them biting their food, they'll genuinely take it. So getting these guys started is amazing to where you can keep a bunch of these guys and you can have a bunch of babies for the most part. I would say 99% of them are gonna survive, which is awesome. But they come in all sorts of colors. So how about, let's do this. I'm gonna put her away. I've got one other orange female that looks somewhat like her. I'm not gonna show you her, but I've got a little orange male and then 2 like blue ones that are starting to turn green, which is kind of unfortunate, but I'll show you those guys real quick. Now here's a little male squam. This is actually the one I call blue, because he's pretty much blue, and as when he was a baby, he was super blue. Now he's starting to turn a little bit different color, but the thing with these squams is they are constantly changing colors until they're adults. I've been talking to a few people, and until they're like 3 years old, they could still change colors. So he may turn more blue, he may turn more green. We're not sure yet. I'm hoping that he's gonna turn really blue, because the guy got him from Rhett. He produced some blues, I think 2 or 3 years ago, and he sent me pictures of those adults, and they're like powder blues. So I'm really hoping he stays that way. And as you can see on the tip of the tail, they have a little, it's like yellowish green tail. That's actually for caudal luring. So what they'll do with that is they'll sit like in the bushes and they'll wiggle their tail and they'll try to attract like little lizards or frogs or even like maybe tiny birds for the bigger ones. And they'll just wiggle their tail, and as a prey comes in to bite the tail, thinking it's like a worm or like a bug, whack, they're gonna go ahead and grab it. Now these guys are super cool. If you look at their face, if we can get a good shot there, they look like little dragons. These are quickly becoming one of my favorite venomous snakes, except for the ones I just got, which I'll tell you at the end of the video. These guys are amazing. Let's get them away, and then let me show you another one. So this shows you how variable that they can be even with the same clutch. This is a clutch mate to that last male, so I'm not gonna breed him to her. That's why I got another one actually from Will Nace. If you watch him on YouTube, I'll show you the little baby I got from him next. But this one is still pretty blue, but has like these blackish purple marks on her back, and then it's also turning a little white. So I'm really curious to see what colors she turns into and how she looks as an adult. But I'll show you that last little squam, the male, and then we'll move on to another species. So believe it or not, guys, this isn't even how small they start. This guy's about 2 months old, so he's got a little bit of size to him. And as you can see, he's got a black tail. So I'm really curious of how this guy's gonna color up, because when I first got him, he had a little bit more orange on him, and then he shed and turned more like yellow, as you see here, but he's still got a little bit of that orange color. I'm really hoping that he turns bright yellow, but I mean, with these guys, you can never really know what they're gonna turn into. But that black tail is interesting, especially because every other one I have has like a yellow tail. but he's a cute little guy. At this size and as babies, what they eat is they eat pinky parts. So little pinky mice, you gotta chop them up into bite-sized pieces for them. And I do feed them a little bit more frequently when they're this small, usually once every like 5 days, and just kind of keeping weight on them. But I mean, even at this size, they are cute little dragons. Now we'll go ahead and put them back in. Let's say we move on to another viper. All right guys, so next up is actually a very impressive snake. This is actually a bushmaster, the Lachius muta. So these guys are the largest viper species in the world, with capabilities of getting up to 12 feet long. Now this is the female. I do have a pair of these, but I'm not gonna take out both of them just because they look the exact same. These guys get massive. I mean, like I said, 12 feet long with the capability, but they average anywhere from 8 to 10 foot, like no problem. And now these guys, you got to keep them really humid, but not wet. They like it in the 60 to 70% humidity rate, but you can't have any like standing water. You can't mist them down or have really a dirty cage. They're a very fragile snake species. If you keep them wet, they'll actually develop scale rot, and they there's a disease that they can get where they basically turn red and then they die. I'm blanking on the name of the disease right now, but I'm sure someone's gonna leave in the comments section. So that's why you gotta keep them really dry but humid. They're more of an advanced species of snakes to keep. You don't wanna feed them also too much because their natural body type is more of like a V taper. As you can see, she's definitely got some fecal matter in there she needs to drop out, but she's still more on the slender side. You wanna keep them more like that just to be healthier because they can get obese really quick. So let's go ahead and get her back, and then we'll grab out some, I think what's next? Yeah, we'll grab out some rattlesnakes. This is actually a Crotalus jurissus cumanensis. This was actually produced by McCarthy's over at McCarthy's Wildlife Sanctuary. And these guys are extremely toxic. And unlike most rattlesnake species here in the States, they are extremely neurotoxic. Whereas a lot of rattlesnakes in North America are hemotoxic, which is very interesting. I fed these guys live before, because that's what they're eating at first. And I don't think I've seen venom in rattlesnakes act any faster than I've seen it in this species. I mean, literally from the moment they hit the mouse was dead. There was no time delay. There was no waiting on the mouse to kind of walk around. It was instant. So these guys are a very, very hot species of snake. Now I have two of these. This is actually the male. And the female looks quite different. So I'm gonna go ahead and grab her out. He's got more of the classic rattlesnake pattern, whereas more diamond shaped. And as you can see, what's really interesting about these guys as well is much like the Bushmasters, they have a really tapered off like V spinal column where it all peaks at the very top and then drops off. They're not a round species of snake. They're more of like an A-shaped species. So you gotta keep them more slender. And this is how they naturally look, is with that tapered off look, whereas instead of like the Southern Pacific that I'll bring out after these guys that are more rounded, these guys are tapered. So like I said, I have two of these. The male is a classic pattern, whereas the female, which you can see her just focusing on me, has a nice complete stripe all the way down from her head to her tail. I mean, there's not one single break in that stripe. This is probably the best striped snake I've seen in my life. All right guys, so next up are some North American species of rattlesnakes. These are my Southern Pacific rattlesnakes, or Crotalus helleri. These guys are from central and southern California, and I believe they even range over into Arizona a little bit as well. Now this is my male. I've got two. This is my het albino, and now this is the female. So this is albino Southern Pacific rattlesnake. Now these are by far my favorite of any albino rattlesnake out there. These guys are just the most vibrant orange and just the nicest colors. I've seen a lot of albino rattlesnakes, even like the Western Diamondbacks. I think these are way nicer, and the Easterns, I think these are way prettier for just having like a solid orange snake. Now that is a cool rattlesnake. Now Southern Pacifics are pretty toxic, and in their range, or I guess their species, the venom will actually differ depending on what locality of Southern Pacific it is. And some of them are like way more toxic than others. I don't know which range that these guys come from, but I do plan on breeding them in the future because these guys are absolutely amazing. I've been raising them since they were literally a day old is when I got them. So let's go ahead and check out the next North American rattlesnake species. So you guys just saw the Southern Pacific rattlesnake. Now this is the Northern Pacific rattlesnake. These guys are native to central Northern California all the way up to, I think, British Columbia. This is Crotalus oregonus. Now, this is the rattlesnake species, or the venomous snake species, that I originally started working with probably 12 years ago. And this one's a little boy. I can tell because of where the vent starts and the tail goes. The longer tails are males, the shorter tails are females. But like I said, these are the ones I started with. They were a great one to start with because they're more of a mellow rattlesnake species. And they're not, as far as rattlesnakes go, they're not incredibly toxic either. And where I was growing up, we had a lot of anti-venom for them. Luckily, I didn't need it. So I was able to work with these guys. Now, my friend actually produced these. He produced a bunch of them and he sent me about 30. I've got 20 left. So I am making these available. I've posted a few times on my Instagram. If you're a venomous snake keeper out there and you want some Northern Pacifics, I know they do not become available all that often for captive bred ones, but these are eating frozen thawed right now. So if you want one, go ahead and message me on my Instagram. I'll put the link in the description below. But these guys are extremely awesome. They get 3 to 4 feet long. And like I said, they're pretty mellow of a species. And all these babies seem like they are good examples of their species. So next up is another North American rattlesnake species, and this is actually the second largest species in the United States, but they're responsible for the most bites. Now, as you can see here, this is his shed. This is an albino Western Diamondback shed, and this is probably, I would say, 5.5 feet long. Now, obviously, shed's stretched, so it's probably a 5-foot animal, but I'm gonna go ahead and take him out and show you guys him. Now, with Western Diamondbacks, they're more of a skittish rattlesnake species. These guys are just always twitchy, even though this one is probably the calmest one I've ever had, and I've had probably 40 of these. So let me go ahead and take him out. Depending on his mood, I'm not gonna handle him too long. I'm just gonna kind of get him in his enclosure. And I'll have, so you can see him there, he's big Western Diamondback. And he's a big boy. And then Julia, I'll have you stand back and I'll pull him out. And he's heavy too. So let's go ahead and do this. Now I'm using a double hook because these big vipers, they're heavy bodied snakes. You don't want to put too much pressure on their ribs and break them. Now what I do with him is I'll put him on the edge here. Let him go that way. And then I'll grab his tail. So as you can see, that is a big Western Diamondback. Let me get it stretched out a little bit. But as you can see, he's not very, not aggressive at all, not super defensive. He rattles a little bit, but he's pretty mellow for a Western Diamondback. Now let's get him here. So I need to get a better grip on him. There we go. But he is a heavy snake. I would say he's probably in the 8 to 10 pound range, and like I said, 5 feet long. This is a big, impressive rattlesnake. And like I said, I've had 40 of these Western Diamondbacks. This is the one I've decided to keep over the years. I've had him for probably 9 years now. Just because he's such a mellow snake. He'll probably stop rattling in a second. Usually he does, but since I'm talking, he's probably feeling the vibrations. So go ahead and get him away, and then we'll check out some more South American species of rattlesnakes. Now this is one that you may have seen on other channels. They aren't super common in the US, but for down here in Florida, there's a guy that produces them, Mark McCarthy, who also produced my other South American rattlesnake species. And he pumps these out. He has great success. I mean, that guy can breed anything. So they are somewhat common down here in Florida, but a very, very cryptic looking species of rattlesnake. These guys are from Venezuela and nowhere else. Now, I have another species of Venezuelan rattlesnake that looks very similar to this Uracoan. I wanted to show you him first, so that way you can see kind of what's more common and what's more out there, and also compare the Uracoan rattlesnake to the next one I'm about to pull out. This is the Uraco rattlesnake, also Crotalus pifinorum. Now these ones are not common at all, even that you'll see. This might be one of the only ones on YouTube. These guys are really rare, but it's not just the species of rattlesnake that's rare, it's this exact locality. Now, pifinorum are usually really dark colored snakes, more like the Uracoan, but from this locality, they're really light, like a cookies and cream color. I mean, you can look at her face, it's like almost as white as the board, and those black dots. I mean, these are a beautiful species of rattlesnake. One other thing though, is as these guys age, this locality will turn more purple and blue. So it's like almost like a pure purple rattlesnake. I saw the parents or I wouldn't have believed it. But yeah, the mother of this animal is like literally blue. It's crazy. So I'm really excited to see how she ages and colors up. And I do want to get a male for her. So next season, what I want to do is get a male. That way, in a few years, I can produce these guys. But this is a beautiful species of rattlesnake, that one that I didn't even know about until we got it offered. I didn't even know this thing existed, but I'm really glad I got it. Now, this is the last snake I'm gonna show you guys today. I do have 2 other snakes in quarantine, but I'm not gonna show those. But if you follow me on Instagram, you already know what they are. I got 2 Mangshan vipers. So those guys are in quarantine. They've been there for about 3 or 4 weeks. I'm gonna keep them in for another 3 or 4 weeks. They're doing great though. They're eating, they're shedding, they're actually growing like weeds. They've probably put on 20% body size since I've had them only a month. I've heard that they can get up to like 3 feet in the first year, and they're probably 1.5 feet, 2 feet long. Probably close to that 1.5 foot mark, and they're only a couple months old. So they're growing quick, but once they're out of quarantine, I'll show you those guys. But I hope you enjoyed today's video, seeing all the venomous snakes we have here in the venomous snake room. If you did, make sure to like, comment, subscribe, and we'll see you on the next one.